Greetings and welcome to a Prayerful Pause. I'm Nancy Woodworth-Hill, and amongst other things, a spiritual director. Today we will look at one way of praying and meditating with Scripture. It is the practice of looking for illustrations from our life, our stories, songs we like, a picture, a quotation, whatever, something from our life. The theologian Karl Barth said, "Prayer without study would be empty, study without prayer would be blind." He also noted that Jesus does not give recipes that show the way to God as other teachers of religion do. He is himself the way. Barth, who lived from 1886 to 1968, was a Protestant Swiss theologian who contributed much to theological thought as he studied and prayed with Scripture. He was steeped in the Bible and encouraged both prayer and study. So there are many good reasons to engage Scripture through varying practices which are meditative in nature. Among them are to provide a foundation for our day, to offer a different perspective, to help us carry Scripture into our lives, to lay a foundation for memorization, which allows Scripture to pop up into our consciousness, usually at times when we need it, to connect us more closely with the divine as source, word, and spirit, to allow Scripture to shape us as followers of Christ, to give us language with which we may pray, and to provide assistance in the process of discernment. There are a great many types of literature in the Bible, which may be seen as the story of God with us from the beginning of creation to the end of times. There is poetry, the Psalms, and many of the prophetic texts, all poetry, stories of the patriarch, judges and kings, wisdom writings in the forms of proverbs and other stories. There are the Gospels, the good news of Jesus the Christ. There are letters to the early church and apocalyptic texts. Each of these requires some hints to select a text with which to begin. The Psalms or sayings of Jesus usually work quite well. It's helpful to begin perhaps with a favorite passage, one that has had meaning for you, that you wish to explore more deeply. Sitting with your chosen biblical phrase, verse, or passage, the task is to identify an illustration that may explain or clarify, deepen, enhance, or reinforce it in some way. It can be a personal anecdote, a quote, a song, painting, a photograph, even a news or historical event. Anything which summarizes a piece of that Scripture that you have chosen. So here's the practice. First, prepare. So carve out a space and time. Select a Scripture verse or phrase, and if you can't find just one, just have a few. Too many can be confusing. Begin by scanning them, allowing the one that you need that day to reveal itself. So this may be a small meditative practice if you have one. And have materials prepared if you wish to journal on this or add this bit to a journal. So here's the practice. Select a verse or phrase or story to begin with. The suggestion is you make your selection from a small list. As I had mentioned, attending to what pops for you, what shows itself, what glows, whatever language you wish. Sit with this verse for a time. Let it move from your body or your head into your heart. Pull all of yourself together. Ruminate on it. Chew on it. Let it become part of you, or let yourself melt into it for this moment. Then identify something within this section, your selection of text, that has drawn your focus or interest. And then search through your memory for an illustration of any sort. Then sit with this illustration. What is your unconscious inviting you to become aware of? Once you have finished that, it's time to close the practice. If you keep a journal, you may wish to record this verse and your illustration and what message you found for yourself within it. You may also choose to end with a small practice of gratitude or a minute or two of silence, or whatever works for you to be an appropriate way to end this time. So here's an example from Paul's first letter to the Corinthians, his great ode to love. Here's the 13th verse of the 13th chapter. And now faith, hope, and love abide, these three, and the greatest of these is love. As I read this, in my mind popped the memory of my 2.5-year-old granddaughter, who I had not seen for over a year in person, running toward me with open arms as she got to the States from her home country. The greatest of these is love. And also, a song popped into my mind. I believe it's an old Quaker song. I'm not certain. How can I keep from singing? How can I keep from singing? My life rolls on in endless song above earth's lamentations. How can I keep from singing? The greatest of these is God's love. So in pondering these two illustrations that came forward for me, I saw that love is an in-the-moment choice to give and to receive. If this video has been helpful to you, please consider sharing it. Go in peace.